All right, strap in everyone for today's deep dive. We're trying something a little different today, a little thought experiment. We're going to imagine ourselves on a volcanic island, pretty remote, dominated by what the locals call Mount Cinder. And today's big question, have you ever thought about what happens after a volcano erupts? I mean, not just the immediate aftermath, the chaos and the destruction, but years, decades later, what happens to that land? What happens to the life that was there? That's what we're going to be digging into today. And I've got just the expert to help us unpack not just the science, but the deeper meaning behind all of it. So to set the scene, we're part of this research team, right? And we've landed on this volcanic island. Imagine stark beauty, all black volcanic rock. Surprisingly fertile soil, though, because volcanic minerals, they're nature's fertilizer. And there's life here. It's not just barren rock, There are these crazy heat-loving plants, maybe some weird insects, creatures that have adapted to this seemingly harsh environment.
It's really amazing how life finds a way to thrive in these seemingly impossible conditions. It really highlights nature's, how do I put it, nature's just pure tenacity. It's adaptability in its purest form.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing, Mount Cinder, it's been dormant for centuries, and well, it decides to wake up. And the source material we're looking at today, it doesn't hold back on the details, okay? We're talking rivers of molten lava, explosions launching like rocks and ash, like kilometers into the air, that sulfur smell, that rotten egg smell filling the air. I mean, it's dramatic. It's a complete shift from, this almost peaceful, stark beauty to just pure explosive power.
Volcanic eruptions, they're a powerful reminder of the immense forces at work beneath the Earth's surface, right? I mean, most of the time we just kind of walk around oblivious to what's happening, kilometers below us. But it's not just about the visual spectacle, it's the forces. Imagine the pressure building up over time deep within the Earth's mantle. And when that pressure finally releases, boom, the result is literally explosive.
And our research team, well, they had to evacuate, obviously. But from a safe distance, they witnessed utter devastation. Entire forests just gone, incinerated. The ecosystems they were studying buried under, molten rock and thick layers of ash. It's a bleak picture. Makes you wonder, is this it for life on the island? Is this game over for this ecosystem?
That's where it gets really interesting. Because while a volcanic eruption is undeniably destructive, I mean, it's right there in the name, it also carries the seeds of renewal. It might sound counterintuitive. I mean, you look at this scene and it screams death and destruction, but within that destruction, there's also the potential for new life.
Okay, seeds of renewal. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this. How can something so destructive also be a source of new life?
Well, think about that ash we were talking about. It's not just, choking dust. It's incredibly fertile, packed with minerals that plants need. It's like nature's ultimate fertilizer, spread across the landscape by the volcano itself.
So even in this apocalyptic scenario, there's a glimmer of hope for the island's future.
Exactly. And this process, it's known as ecological succession. It's how nature rebuilds itself, After a major disturbance, like this eruption, life comes back in stages. First, you get what are called pioneer species. These are like the tough guys of the plant world, hardy plants, maybe some lichens, things that can tolerate these really harsh conditions. They come in first, they start to stabilize the soil, create like microclimates, and that paves the way for more, complex life forms to return. So let's fast forward a few years, maybe a decade or two. We're back on the island. Yeah. What are we seeing now? Give me the visual. Well, the source material describes it as a scene of unexpected rebirth. I think that's a great way to put it. Picture pioneer plants sprouting from the ash, lichens clinging to the cooled lava flows. It's stark, but there's life. New ecosystems are taking shape. They're not necessarily identical to what existed before, but it's proof, proof that life is resilient, that it finds a way. It's like hitting the reset button on the island's ecosystem.
And this is where those local legends about Mount Cinder come in, right? The ones that talked about its wrath, but also its gifts.
Exactly. They understood this duality, this interconnectedness of destruction and creation. The volcano, as destructive as it is also a source of renewal. And it's a cycle that plays out, not just in volcanic landscapes, but think about forest fires. Devastating in the short term, but they clear out old growth, allow sunlight to reach the forest floor, new seedlings to thrive. It's the same cycle.
Floods, too, right?
Yeah.
Destructive, but they deposit nutrient-rich sediment, replenishing the soil.
Exactly. It's a reminder that our human tendency to label things as purely good or bad, it's a bit oversimplified.
nature operates on a different scale, a different set of rules.
Definitely. Nature's processes are far more complex and interconnected than we often give them credit for. What we might perceive as purely destructive, it can actually be a catalyst for new beginnings, for something entirely new and unexpected.
So we've seen the destruction, we've seen the rebirth, this fascinating duality of nature playing out on this island. But what does it all mean for us? What's the takeaway here?
That's the real question, isn't it? I mean, this whole thought experiment, it's not just about volcanoes. It's about understanding that these cycles of change, they govern our world, they govern us.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that even in the face of what seems like utter catastrophe, life, it finds a way. It adapts, it evolves, it finds a way to not just survive, but to flourish again. It's incredible, really.
So in a way, this volcano, it's a metaphor for all sorts of challenges and disruptions, right? Not just in nature, but in our own lives as well. I mean, we all experience setbacks, loss, moments that feel like our own personal Mount Cinder erupting and just, turning our world upside down.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But if we look to nature, we see that even in those moments of apparent destruction, there's potential. Potential for regrowth, for transformation, for something new to emerge from the ashes.
You mentioned that life finds a way to flourish again, but how does that actually work? I mean, what's the mechanism behind this incredible resilience?
That's a great question, and it takes us from, the macroscopic level of ecosystems down to the microscopic level of our own cells. To understand resilience, we need to understand how even the tiniest building blocks of life are constantly engaging in these cycles of destruction and renewal.
Okay, so we're zooming in from volcanic islands to the microscopic world of cells. Now, this is where it gets interesting.
It really does. And it all starts with understanding that even something as seemingly negative as cell death is actually essential for life.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that death, even at the cellular level, is a key ingredient for life? I need you to explain this
Yeah.
more.
Think about it. Old cells, damaged cells, they need to be cleared out to make way for new, healthy cells. It's like cleaning out the clutter, to make space for something new and better. It's a process called apoptosis, and it's happening all the time. It's happening in your body right now, completely unnoticed.
So it's like our own internal volcanic eruption, constantly clearing the way for new growth.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual cells either. This cycle of destruction and renewal, it's at play in our tissues, our organs,
Yeah.
even our entire bodies as we age and regenerate. It's happening everywhere.
This is making me think about how we view scars, both physical and emotional. We often see them as imperfections, as reminders of damage, but maybe they're also signs of resilience, of our body's incredible ability to heal and to adapt and to keep going.
And I like that. Scars tell a story of resilience, of overcoming adversity. They're a testament to the body's ability to weave new life from the remnants of the old.
And maybe those stories are just as important as the ones about, pristine perfection. Maybe true beauty lies in the evidence of life's struggles and triumphs, in the scars we carry.
That raises an interesting question. How does this change our perspective on the idea of progress? Do we always need to be striving for something bigger, better, newer? Or is there value in recognizing these cycles of breakdown and renewal that are inherent in all living systems,
Yeah.
including our own societies and cultures?
Ooh, that's a big question. It's making me think about how we approach, problem solving. Do we always need to erase the old to make way for the new, or is there a way to embrace both destruction and creation, to find a balance that honors both the past and the future?
It's a question that each of us has to grapple with in our own way, but
Yeah.
but I think this volcano, this thought experiment, it offers some valuable insights. It reminds us that change is inevitable, that destruction is often a prelude to creation, and that true balance, it's not about things staying the same, it's about continuous adaptation.
So if we apply this to our understanding of a world around us, how might this new perspective on change and balance influence how we interact with nature? I mean, are we talking about shifting from a mindset of control to one of collaboration?
Well, I think it starts with a little humility. We often think of ourselves as separate from nature, as somehow above its laws. But but this thought experiment, it reminds us that we are part of these cycles too. We experience loss, we go through periods of upheaval, and hopefully we emerge stronger and wiser on the other side. We're not in control, really. Nature has its own rhythms and processes that operate on on a much grander scale than our human timelines.
So maybe instead of trying to conquer or control nature, we can learn from its wisdom. We can observe these cycles of destruction and creation and find ways to work with them, rather than against them. It's like that saying, the only constant is change, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So maybe instead of resisting change, we can try to lean into it, to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this as an opportunity to grow?
I love that. Instead of seeing challenges as setbacks, we can start to view them as opportunities for learning and adaptation.
And that leads to another important takeaway: cultivating resilience. Life throws curveballs, and it's not about avoiding those challenges. It's about developing the inner strength to bounce back from them. It's a lifelong process, but I think it starts with self-awareness, understanding our strengths and weaknesses, recognizing our patterns of behavior, developing healthy coping mechanisms for stress and adversity.
And it's about connecting with our support systems, right? Reaching out to friends, family, or professionals when we need help. We don't have to go through tough times alone.
Absolutely. We are social creatures, and our connections with others are essential for our well-being, especially during times of change and upheaval.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from volcanic islands to personal growth. This has been a truly thought-provoking deep dive so far. We've explored ecosystems, cells, and even our own experiences of change and resilience. But what really blows my mind is how it all connects back to this fundamental idea of duality in nature.
It's a reminder that the world is far more complex and interconnected than we often realize. And that even in the face of destruction, there's always the potential for creation, for renewal, for something new and beautiful to emerge.
Absolutely. So if we zoom out even further, what does this all mean for our place in the universe? I mean, if these cycles of destruction and creation are happening at the cellular level, the ecosystem level, even the planetary level, does that mean they're happening on a cosmic scale as well?
That's a question that's fascinated philosophers and scientists for centuries. I mean, we know that stars are born, they burn brightly for millions or billions of years, and then they die, often in these spectacular supernova explosions. And those explosions, those cosmic volcanic eruptions, if you will, they scatter elements throughout space, creating the building blocks for new stars and planets. It's the same cycle, just on a mind-bogglingly larger scale.
Whoa. It's both humbling and exhilarating, isn't it, to realize that we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves, something that's been unfolding for billions of years, and will continue to do so, long after we're gone.
It definitely puts our human concerns into perspective. I mean, the volcano might seem like a cataclysmic event, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just one small blip on the cosmic radar.
So where does that leave us? What are we supposed to do with this newfound awareness of our place in these vast cycles of change?
That's the million-dollar question, and one that each of us has to answer for ourselves. But I think this thought experiment, it gives us some clues. It encourages us to embrace change, to find beauty in imperfection, and to recognize that even in the face of destruction, there's always the potential for renewal.
It's a reminder that life in all its forms is incredibly resilient. And maybe, just maybe, that knowledge can give us hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges.
Well said. And
Yes.
perhaps it can inspire us to live our own lives with a little more awareness, a little more compassion, and a little more appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. This idea of interconnectedness, of finding beauty in the cycle of destruction and renewal. That's something we're going to explore further in part 2 of this deep dive. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about these cycles of destruction and renewal, from volcanoes to our own cells. And even, on a cosmic scale, it really makes you think about the big picture, doesn't it?
It does. And, as we were talking about that idea of embracing change and finding beauty in imperfection, it reminded me of, remember those local legends we talked about, the ones about Mount Cinder?
Oh, yeah, the ones about the volcano being a source of both wrath and gifts.
Exactly. They seem to have a deep understanding of this duality long before, modern science came along to explain it.
It's like they knew, they observed it, they lived it.
It's a testament to the power of observation, isn't it? Indigenous cultures around the world, they've lived in close relationship with nature for centuries. They observed its patterns, its rhythms. They often have this deep intuitive understanding of these cycles that we're just beginning to rediscover through science.
It makes you wonder what other insights we might gain if we paid more attention to those traditional ways of knowing, you know?
Absolutely. There's a wealth of knowledge embedded in those stories, those myths, those ways of life that have been passed down through generations. It's a reminder that science isn't the only way to understand the world, and that there's much to be learned from other perspectives.
Okay, but let's try to bring this all back to our own lives for a moment.
Okay.
What are some practical takeaways from this volcanic thought experiment? How can we apply these ideas about change and balance and resilience to our everyday experiences?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the importance of not being afraid of change. We as humans, we tend to resist change. We cling to the familiar even when it's no longer serving us. It's like we're hardwired for comfort and stability.
Even when that stability is holding us back.
Exactly. But change is inevitable. In fact, it's often the catalyst for growth and transformation. Remember that saying, the only constant is change.
Yeah, it's a cliche, but there's a lot of truth to it.
There is. So instead of resisting change, what if we tried to embrace it? To ask ourselves, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this as an opportunity to grow?
I love that. It's like reframing those oh no moments into bring it on moments. But even if we embrace change, there are still going to be challenges, right? Setbacks. Times when we feel like we're being buried under a mountain of ash, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Of course. And that's where resilience comes in. Life is going to throw curveballs. And it's not about avoiding those challenges. It's about developing the inner strength to bounce back from them. It's a lifelong process, but it starts with self-awareness, understanding our strengths and weaknesses, recognizing our patterns of behavior, developing healthy coping mechanisms for stress and adversity. Those things take time.
Right. So we need to build up our inner strength, our ability to adapt and overcome. But we don't have to do it alone, right?
Absolutely not. We are social creatures. Our connections with others are essential for our well-being, especially during times of change and upheaval. Reaching out to friends, family, or even professionals when we need help, that's a sign of strength, not weakness. You don't have to go through tough times alone.
It's so easy to forget that sometimes. As we've been talking, I keep thinking back to that question that the source material posed about the balance of nature. Is it about things staying the same? Or is it about constant adaptation and change? I feel like we're starting to get closer to an answer.
I think so too. If we look to nature as our guide, it seems that true balance isn't about maintaining a static state, but rather about this dynamic interplay between destruction and renewal, between breakdown and growth. It's a constant dance.
It's like nature's constantly in flux, a dance between opposing forces, always seeking a new equilibrium.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that dance, it's not limited to the natural world. It's happening within us too, all the time. Just think about our bodies, constantly breaking down and rebuilding cells, adapting to new challenges, healing from injuries. We are microcosms of this larger cycle.
So if this cycle of destruction and creation is happening within us, does that mean it's also happening on a larger scale within our societies, our cultures, our civilizations? I mean, history is full of examples of empires rising and falling, of old systems giving way to new ones.
It is. And just as volcanic ash can fertilize the soil and create the conditions for new life, the breakdown of old systems can create the space for new ideas, new innovations, new ways of being to emerge. It's the same principle.
So we're seeing this pattern everywhere. Cells, ecosystems, civilizations. It's like this universal principle of creation arising from destruction. But where does that leave us as individuals navigating this complex and ever-changing world? Where do we fit in?
That's the big question, isn't it? And while there's no easy answer, I think this thought experiment, it offers us some valuable guidance. It encourages us to embrace change, to find beauty in imperfection, and to recognize that even in the face of destruction, there's always the potential for renewal.
It's like we have this incredible capacity for resilience built right into us, both physically and emotionally, and maybe by tapping into that resilience, by understanding that change is a natural part of life, we can navigate those inevitable ups and downs with a little more grace and a little less fear.
Exactly. And perhaps that's the ultimate gift of this volcanic thought experiment, a reminder that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves, something that's been unfolding for billions of years and will continue to do so long after we're gone.
It's a humbling thought, but it's also strangely comforting, isn't it? to know that we're not alone in this journey, that we're all part of this grand dance of cosmic change.
It is comforting. And, as we've been talking about these cycles of destruction and renewal, I can't help but think about how this applies to our relationship with the planet.
Oh, interesting. You're talking about sustainability and how we can learn to live in harmony with these natural cycles.
Precisely. If we can understand and respect these cycles, if we can learn to work with them rather than against them, perhaps we can find a way to ensure that life on Earth continues to flourish, for generations to come.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were getting into this idea of how understanding nature's cycles, those cycles of destruction and renewal, how they can actually inform our approach to sustainability. And it's a pretty big leap, I know, going from volcanoes to saving the planet.
It might seem like a big leap, but the connection is there. I mean, if we can really grasp this idea that destruction and creation, they're intertwined, not opposing forces, it can radically change how we think about our impact on the environment.
Okay, I get that in principle, but how do we actually apply this volcano analogy to something like climate change? I mean, we're talking about human-caused disruption here, not just natural cycles.
Right, that's a crucial point. Volcanic eruptions, they're natural events, but climate change, it's largely driven by us, by human activities. But even in this context, these principles of resilience and renewal, they can still guide us. I mean, think about it. By acknowledging the damage we've caused, we open up the possibility for change, for finding new solutions, for creating a more sustainable future.
So it's about acknowledging the eruption, so to speak, right? That we've disrupted the balance and then figuring out how to help the planet, heal and adapt.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset from one of exploitation to one of stewardship,
Yeah.
recognizing that we're part of this interconnected web of life, not separate from it.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in practice? I mean, are we talking about reducing our carbon footprint, investing in renewable energy, protecting ecosystems? What are the pioneer species of a sustainable future?
All of the above, really. It's about making conscious choices in our daily lives. The little things we do, supporting businesses and policies that prioritize sustainability, advocating for systemic change. It's about understanding that even small actions, when they're multiplied by millions of people, can have a significant impact.
It's interesting to think about those local legends we discussed earlier, the ones about Mount Cinder. They seem to have this intuitive understanding of living in balance with nature, of taking only what they needed, of giving back. It makes me wonder if we've lost touch with that wisdom somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it's a good point. Many indigenous cultures, they have this long history of sustainable practices, of respecting the Earth's limits, of understanding that interconnectedness of all things, that we're all connected. There's a lot we can learn from their traditional ecological knowledge.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we bring those ancient practices and modern science together to create a truly sustainable future?
Humility. I think that's where it starts. Humility and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. We need to be willing to listen to different perspectives, to learn from those who have lived in harmony with nature for generations, and to integrate that knowledge with our scientific understanding.
It's like weaving together different strands of knowledge, right? To create a stronger, more resilient tapestry for the future.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the sustainability. It's not just a scientific or technological challenge. It's a cultural and spiritual one as well. It's about reconnecting with our place in the web of life, understanding our responsibility to future generations, and finding ways to live in balance with the planet that sustains us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to come back to that question that the source material posed about the balance of nature. How does this thought experiment, how does it challenge or reinforce your ideas about that balance?
It's a question we all have to answer for ourselves, really.
Yeah.
But I think, this conversation, it's highlighted that true balance in nature. It's not about things staying the same. It's about constant adaptation and change. It's about those cycles of destruction and renewal that we've been talking about. And it's about recognizing that we as humans, we're part of this intricate dance
And maybe, just maybe, understanding that dance, learning to move with its rhythms, that's the key to creating a future where both humanity and nature can thrive. So to everyone listening, I encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, to observe these cycles of destruction and renewal in your own life. And in the world around you, and who knows, maybe you'll discover your own unique contribution to creating a more sustainable and resilient world. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.